Hey, I'm Felix from AutoQuote3D, and I've been wanting to do this one for a while. This is a case study about Shop3D and how they adopted AutoQuote3D and the impact that it had on their business. Full disclosure, they're currently a partner in the business, but this was before. All right, so let's start reading. So deploying AutoQuote3D as the backbone of Shop3D's print service offerings has allowed us to be a serious competitor to service bureaus. We've saved hundreds of man hours and generated thousands of dollars in additional orders. We highly recommend this tool for any 3D printing business. This is from Jackie One of the co-founders of Shop3D and the chief technical officer. So yeah, awesome results. They fully adopted it, dove right in right from the get-go, and just basically threw out their Excel sheet and started using AutoQuote3D. It has saved them not just like, it hasn't just generated them more quotes, but it actually saved them a lot of time from their operations side. So let's keep reading. At shop3d.ca, printing services have always been something that we've offered on the side. Our main business has always focused on sales and service of 3D printers and consumables for major brands like Formlabs, Bamboo Lab, Ultimaker, Eraser in the Canadian market, so there has always been a lot on our plate. Our team always wants to be printing and learning, so naturally we have come up with a service we call bridge printing. Essentially, customers who either have run out of capacity, have a printer down, or just need a few prints with another 3D printing technology are able to send us files and have us print them on our FDM, SLA, or SLS machines. So this is pretty common for businesses that have 3D printers, but their core business is not actually 3D printing services, which is the case with Shop3D. They're mainly a reseller, service provider, but they have all of these machines that are just sitting there collecting dust. So they decided, okay, let's just do, they call it bridge printing, but really it's a quote unquote on the side 3D printing service that they have going. The main intention of this service was to support our existing customers. The main intention of the service was to support our existing customer base to help them out of a bind, but over time it attracted new customers requesting prints, and we certainly don't turn them away. Why would you turn away kind of more money? Of course. So these are the major pain points that they encounter. Overwhelming manual effort spent on back and forth with prospects just to get information required to start the job. I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was part of I started a 3D printing service bureau, and this was huge. Like, you get emails, you get calls, and you spend so much time collecting information, making sure that the customer is making the right material choice, recommending things, being the expert, and then never hear from them again, right? But you already spend the time. So let's keep reading. This includes getting the file, asking them which technology they want to use, where are they located, so you can tag them properly, and even if they know what material they desired. Tons of manual effort just to do this. Now, wasting all of this manual quoting time for prospects that were not familiar with 3D printing and didn't expect what the cost would be, meaning that a lot of customers that you might get as a 3D printing service bureau are probably never going to convert, but you're still gonna spend as much time on them as you would on customers that are gonna convert. But you never know which ones would, and you're not just gonna ghost people because that's just bad business. And it just kind of keeps going on this point here. Now, also, they were juggling Excel spreadsheets with complicated formulas to calculate starting costs, material costs, margins, support materials, all those things. And you actually have to download the part, slice it with the correct settings, and then provide your customer a quote. A lot of times, actually, just kind of on the tangent on this, is like you would do all this work, and then the customer's, okay, like, can I also get a quote in SLA and SLS just so I can compare prices? And then you have to do this all over again in different processes, and you're just gonna do that a lot. So they have no workflow management designed specifically for printing, which meant that the print team was not automatically notified if a customer paid for a print job, and therefore the print couldn't get started. All communication with the customer was manual with respect to providing estimates on printing times, kind of like where the order is in the pipeline and so on. This is like super common in the 3D printing service bureau. Like, people either have no formal process or everything is just tracked in like some Excel spreadsheet that is shared, like a Google Sheets or something that is shared across multiple people. You have to keep it updating, or use something like Trello and you're trying to move the cards over. And like it works when it's like one person and you don't have that many orders, but it starts to break down very quickly when you start getting more volume, more orders, especially like if you get a lot of leads that you have to quote. And they were also using a lot of different platforms, right? So they hopped from like Gmail to Excel to like slicing the file to this software to that software, depending what it is. And then their operators also have to keep track of everything that's going on, like what's on the printer, what has to go next, etc. A lot of mental overhead here. And generally, they were kind of like slow to get urgent quotes out, right? You get an email, maybe you're doing something in the middle of it, you don't know if it's urgent or not. Sometimes the customer will say urgent in the title, which is great. You can kind of prioritize it. But they were slow and they would lose those deals basically. So AutoQuote3D aims to solve a lot of these problems, right? Like you have a centralized place where you do all these things and you don't actually have to slice the file until you get the money from the customer, which is saving a lot of time, especially when you're talking about like these 2 points where you're quoting prospects that will never convert. Instead, AutoQuote3D does it for you, filters them for you, so you never have to see them because they were never going to convert anyways. Let's keep reading. At one point, frustration boiled over during a busy period, which forced us to temporarily pause all printing services. Huge issue, like because your operation is not set up, you have no workflow, you are forced. In their case, they can kind of afford to do this, right? But if you are mainly a 3D printing business and you have to kind of start tightening your funnel, basically telling people, I can't print this tomorrow or today, you have to wait a week, you're going to lose those customers because you have to be quick in this market. Again, something that AutoQuote3D aims to solve, and it does solve. Eventually, they invested in customized software apps and new team procedures requiring a full team retraining. So they tried to implement some process, but that was probably not, and we'll keep reading here, that was still not 100%. I'm certain that if we had designed our business from the ground up to be a 3D printing business, we'd have more of this process pat down. Printing was a much smaller part of our operation back then, which we ultimately did feel was essential and beneficial to our customer base. Today, they have a lot more volume. Even with the optimizations, the process was still far from perfect, but AutoQuote3D, was a great solution to many of our pain points. The most important and main reason for adopting the software solution was in its namesake, auto-quoting, auto-quotes for 3D printing, which is great. By implementing the AutoQuote3D system, we instantly addressed our biggest time and labor expense by eliminating the need for manual quoting and information collection. This is again from Jackie. That's basically what AutoQuote does, right? It takes away the manual effort of quoting jobs, information collecting, everything. Like your customer does all of that work in the pipeline on the widget that the business shares on their website or otherwise. After a simple setup and onboarding, and super, like, I want to bold this, but it is very simple to set up AutoQuote3D. Check out the YouTube videos just so you can get a feel for it. So they added the quoting tool to our site, and they enabled customers to upload files directly to Shop3D and bypassing email inquiries and wait times. Sometimes you can't even upload these big files, and they share you some random link to something, or they're like, hey, how can I send you this big file? AutoQuote3D supports virtually half a gig files if customers really want. Those are like anomalies, but it does support it. Customers were able to select printing technology, materials, provide shipping details for tax calculation, include notes, or expedited requests. Once the required information was entered, an instant quote was generated, allowing customers to decide if it fits their timeline and budget. This automation eliminated manual intervention, providing quick quotes to those who needed them, while those over budget were able to exit without human interaction. This is huge, right? Like if you go on an insurance website, whatever it is, like you basically get a quote right away. If it's in your budget, if it's not in your budget, and you move on. This saves so much time for everybody involved. I guess just to touch on this, if you're not familiar with 3D printing and you want to start a business, you'll notice that you might spend 3, 4, 5 emails going back and forth with your prospects just to get to a point where you can give them a quote, right? AutoQuote3D just eliminates that. The customer does the picking, and then they go forward. And they can always reach out to you if they have any questions about materials, but at the end of the day, you just go back to the tool and process the quote and pay for it. This was a stark comparison to our manual process, which required text to gather customer details, requires STL files, confirm technology and material preferences. They would then upload the file to a slicer, record time, it's just kind of reiterating everything I just said about the manual process. And then after entering the customer information, they will send a quote and follow back with back and forth, everything I just described. This process typically takes at least 2 hours and could stretch over several days for customers who were less tech savvy. Yeah, huge time saver. Often our team would be left without a response. Like I mentioned, a lot of customers just ghost because it's not in their budget or they didn't expect it to be so expensive, and they still had to waste all of that time and effort, even though that customer did not convert. So this is a great diagram that Jackie provided. So they have Trello for project management, where I kind of mentioned like you can move things in different quoted, paid, etc., finished, printing. So this is what they used to do. They used to get the STL file, upload it to whatever slicer, get some number, put it into an Excel, go to their CRM, in this case Shopify, plug in the customer information if they even had all of this, and then send it over, and then the customer will pay. They maybe get notified, maybe not. Their CRM is coupled with their regular business, so like they don't actually get notified on specifically on the print orders. So like somebody has to manually check, and then it would print and send it over, or maybe they pick it up. However, with AutoQuote3D, all of that is now on the client, right? So they upload the STL file to AutoQuote3D. They either choose to pay or not, and you start printing. You collect the money and start printing. Here's a quick snippet. How our workflow has changed is dramatic. AutoQuote3D replaces the need for layers of different software interactions where we would have AutoQuote replaces the need for layers of different software interactions where we would have to manually curate. It even sends out a quick email to customers when you've changed the status from printing to shipping, and any stages in between. Keeping everything within one software environment including some status update emails. Yeah, AutoQuote3D, like as you move it down the pipeline, so you can track where each job is, and it's very clear in the software. The client gets a quick email saying, hey, like it went from, you paid for it, great, you get an email, and then from paid it goes to printing. So now the customer's like, oh, nice, they're printing my part. And then when it's printed, it goes into like QC or something like that, and it's shipped, picked up, completed, and so on. The embedded AutoQuote3D interface is now clear and more universal, so customers who do not have the requisite information, such as a ready 3D file, would not be quoted. Where you don't have a file, you can't get quoted. They can still reach out to them if they need like design help, things like that. That's exactly what we want to see, since we do want to exclude prospects who are basically unqualified and are not willing to provide any other information. These customers can contact us through other channels and may be routed to a design team instead of the prints team. Makes sense. Once AutoQuote3D was deployed, we no longer wasted time on quotes that wouldn't convert, and have decreased our quoting time from 4 hours down to nearly instantaneous. Right, that's the AutoQuote3D. That's everything in the namesake there. The speed and accuracy means that prospects would be more likely to go with a firm quote rather than wait for back and forth with another competitor. If you're in this manufacturing industry, usually, unless it's very big batch orders, usually the first one to quote is the one that gets the job. Not necessarily the cheapest one, but usually the first one to quote gets the job. If you have the capability and you can give me a price, I'm gonna pay for it, and I want it delivered in 2 days. Like that is the expectation in this world, right? You go on Amazon, that's your expectation, nothing else. Overall, our team has praised the AutoQuote3 print management system, as it allows them to focus on their work of printing rather than focus on menial administrative tasks of sending updates. Huge, right? Like you don't have to think about crafting an email, sending it, picking the right email, maybe sending it to the wrong one. It eliminates so many steps, so much mental overhead. Just I guess a quick fun one. Less admin equals more printing, which means more experimentation, experience, and knowledge for our team. A full size, and you can see here, like a full size SLA print. Just looks cool, I guess, for the picture. As we swapped over to AutoQuote3D workflow, which was designed for printing, each customer order followed and flowed down a pipeline showing the number of orders at each stage. It allowed our printing techs to readily identify the number of orders and prints they expected to be servicing in the short term, while anticipating the next order in the sequence. And here on the left, you can see the different stages that an order goes through. And it's very easy to see, how many things you have in the pipeline, what things you need to follow up on, what was paid, what needs printing, etc. It's very, very easy. AutoQuote3D organizes orders at all stages, so you can easily see at a glance how many are paid and pending to how many are abandoned at the checkout. We can then reach out to those and see if they can convert them. At each critical stage, for example, when an order moves from invoice to paid, AutoQuote3D notifies the print team that the order is confirmed and ready for processing. This allows us to start preparing the print immediately. As we work on the order, the system automatically updates the client. I have a lot of things that we already touched on earlier. And this real-time synchronization between our print team and customer is crucial as it aligns expectations at every step. This is like so awesome. I think as a customer, especially when the process is more complex, getting updates at every stage of the print job, of the process rather, builds like trust that, okay, like I know what's going on at every stage. Like, okay, it's printing now, it's printed. And it's so nice to get these little update emails to know, okay, like what's going on with your print, versus right now the industry standard, usually, especially when the shop is busy, is like you order the part, you pay for it, and then you get it in mail. You don't know when, you don't know what's happening to that part. This keeps the customer in the loop and in your kind of in your pipeline, so that you can provide these updates and build a connection there. Even though it's automated, it's still very personal because each client gets these emails, and you can add a little custom note if you wanted to. AutoQuote3D has completely transformed how Shop3D handles its print to order business. It has increased our sales by providing instant, accurate quotes that prospects can act on immediately. Costs have been reduced by eliminating the manual back and forth, etc., etc., etc. A lot of these things we already talked about. And the main thing that they saw, well, let's just touch on this. They highly recommend it for any 3D printing service. And it's so cool to see how things have changed for them. I mean, again, full disclosure, I actually used to work at Shop3D. I used to run this part of their business as well, and it was just such a pain. You know, I brought some of the learnings that I had in my 3D printing business. I scaled up theirs. When I left, they started to struggle. But that's because, like, when the knowledge is with a specific individual, and the workflow and like the planning and everything is with a specific individual, and like it's hard to transfer the knowledge out and the experience out, like AutoQuote3 aims to simplify this, right? Like all of a sudden you don't have to teach your techs how to quote a job, right? You just don't have to do that. The software does it for you, and they can just focus on printing, which is like a lot of times that's what people want to do anyways. They don't really want to spend time quoting things. They want to print things, they want to mess with different materials, they want to get experience, and AutoQuote3 opened this up for Shop3D because that is actually like what they want to do. They want to use the 3D printing service jobs to educate their team about how to use materials, how to use the different machines, and so on. So it's a bit of a unique case, but it opens up the time and the ability to do so. And yeah, so if you are interested in trying out AutoQuote3, reach out to me at Felix@AutoQuote3D.com. I'll give you a coupon code so you can try the first month for free. And yeah, until next time, I'm Felix. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave any comments that you have. And yeah, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Cheers.